So there was a declassified report that shows that the Biden administration viewed gun owners as, quote, domestic terror threats just for being gun owners. Now, that really is kind of closely tied to what we're just talking about. By the way, this is from the NSSF, the Firearm Industry Trade Association. It's written by Larry Keene. The gun control overreach by the Biden administration was, by all measures, appalling. We've talked a lot about that, and he's absolutely right. It started with President Joe Biden calling the firearm industry, quote unquote, the enemy. This is from the debate stage and resulted in a whole of government weaponization to decimate the industry, including executive branch overreach to craft criminal law from thin air. It was infuriating, but it turns out you didn't despise them enough. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, who under the Trump administration currently, she declassified a Biden administration report called the Strategic Implementation Plan for Countering Domestic Terrorism. The report was for the Biden administration's National Security Strategic Implementation Plan to counter domestic terror. We all wanted to counter domestic terror. Nobody likes domestic terror. Let's get rid of domestic terrorists. However, it was built around 4 pillars, but the last and final one was and is shockingly disturbing. The report identified who are, quote, potentially dangerous individuals. And that finger pointed right at you, according to this article, the law-abiding gun owner. So of the 4 types of people, the 4 groups of people that they identified as potentially dangerous individuals who might commit or I don't know, probably go as far as probably will commit domestic terrorism, gun owners. Gun owners were right in the crosshair, so to speak. So pillar 4, confront long-term contributors to domestic terrorism, intended impact, lethal means for perpetrating acts of domestic terrorism are reduced. Greater care is provided earlier for potential dangerous individuals. Norms of nonviolent political expression and rejection of racism and bigotry are strengthened. Americans have increasing faith in democracy and government, increased intervention and care for those who pose a danger to themselves and others, strengthen civics educations that promotes democratic resilience, increased civic engagement to foster social cohesion. So the action to accomplish that goal is to rein in the proliferation of quote-unquote ghost guns, encourage state adoption of extreme risk protection orders, which are, that's the new term. Remember we were talking about a few weeks ago that they're not calling them gun violence restraining orders anymore. They're calling them extreme risk protection orders. And drive other executive and legislative action, including banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. This is how they propose to prevent domestic terrorists. So if you have a magazine that holds 11 or more rounds, if you have a semi-automatic rifle, if you think there should be due process when someone accuses you of something, you're potentially a domestic terrorist. And if you have a hobby of making firearms for your own personal use and not for sale, then the Biden administration looked at you as no more than just a potential domestic terrorist.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do they give a definition in these terms? Because if I have a 15-round mag, that's standard capacity. I don't think I fall into this category of high capacity.
Right. No, they'll happily define it once it's ready to get voted on, believe me. Which is like, people like to say, assault weapon, that's not a real term. And You're absolutely right. It's not a real term. It's not an industry term. But it is a legal term because they've made it an illegal term. It's also a pejorative because the only way it's used is, not in a positive fashion. It's used in a negative fashion. So what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on how the previous administration classified document says that you're a problem?
It's so offensive. I mean, offensive isn't even a strong enough word, but it's just so shockingly offensive to say that people who care about their own self-defense in a country where law enforcement response is very long, right? City of San Diego, I think PD response time for priority 1 calls is like over 35 minutes, right? So in the place that I live, there is no one coming to save me except myself. But me wanting to save myself, me wanting to live my life puts me on the, bad list or whatever. It's like, I think the Biden administration in a lot of ways was a domestic terrorist.
Well, they're gone, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And current Attorney General Bondi, I think we're still, I got to say, the administration's on the right path, and so far she's done some good things. But I still think she's got some stuff to prove. I'm still waiting for her to screw up. But so far, everything's been okay. Attorney General Bondi has already rolled back the Biden-era ATF zero tolerance policy, which was little more than fast-tracking getting rid of gun dealers. That's all they were doing. Among the task force's to-do list is a review of the final rules related to pistol braces and engaged in the business. For too long, the Second Amendment, which establishes the fundamental individual right of Americans to keep and bear arms, has been treated as a second-class right. This was in the memo from the Attorney General's desk. No more, it is the policy of this Department of Justice to use its full might to protect the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. I love the powerful words. I hope they continue and turn into powerful actions.
Yep.
But the stark difference between the Biden administration saying, you, Alicia, you're probably a domestic terrorist. You're about as domestic terrorist as it gets, potentially.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that we have the Trump administration saying no more. Pretty powerful words.
Well, speaking of powerful words, I want to go back and revisit for just a moment. I know we've talked about it before, but it's hitting me differently today than I think it does in the past. And I'm not sure why.
Go for it.
Extreme risk protection orders.
Yeah.
They are really, I don't know if I can say bad words.
Yeah, say bad words.
It really pisses me off.
There you go.
So what
I like that that's the bad word. That's the bad word,
I was
Alicia?
ready for
I don't know how
an F-bomb or
YouTube will be
something.
like.
All right.
I mean, it does. So what this is doing, it's almost like putting a label on something that when you answer truthfully, it means you're a horrible person.
Yep.
Who doesn't want to protect people?
Right.
Extreme risk protection orders. They are using powerful words to invoke fear and to invoke a feeling of where people are like, what, I don't even understand what this or know what it is, but I'm going to, it sounds like it's a great thing. I don't even need to know about it. They're using powerful words to fool people and to fool people into a lull to where they're not going to fight it.
Yeah.
They're also saying things. I mean, I've made this point before with the media, how we should not just be blindly agreeing with headlines we see because they're often so untrue. But in this document, the intended impacts, so much of this reads like propaganda. This is a sentence. Americans have increasing faith in democracy and government. I feel like I should be, those old cartoons where like they're seeing black and white dots and they get hypnotized, I feel like that's the vibe here. Like, you have increasing faith, you trust your government. It's like, no, I don't. And I think a lot of Americans don't. But they put this in here as if it's a fact. Rein in the proliferation of ghost guns. What proliferation? Where is the proof of any of these claims? Increase intervention and care for those who pose a danger to themselves and others. Like, it sounds great, but what do you mean by increase intervention? What do you mean by increase care? Strengthen civics education that promotes democratic resiliency. What kind of education are we going to get?
Propaganda is what they're going to get.
It feels so much like propaganda to me.
Reject the premise. The other thing, by the way, I don't trust democracy. That's why I love living in a representative constitutional republic. So this propaganda towards democracy, I know what they're trying to say, but I know what they're actually saying, So I'm one of those people. Gosh, I'm so domestically terrorist.
We went to school when they actually taught kind of stuff like this in civics. I don't think the kids are learning this now.
Well, maybe if you'd stop using bad words like pisses people off, we would have fewer presidential administrations calling us terrorists, Alicia.
Maybe.
All right. What else? Hey, thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. I hope you loved that clip. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and follow us on social media and check out our website at gunownersradio.com.